This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Work can be a little weird. Cringy training seminars, coworkers who won't stop talking about their plant, forgetting the mute button at an inopportune moment. We have to deal with a lot on any given workday. Sometimes it can feel hard to thrive and move forward in your career. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in. LinkedIn helps you get ideas and insights from experts in your field, connect with people professionally, grow your network, and access tools designed to help you find the right fit for your next role. Whether you're just getting started, figuring out your next move, or looking to accelerate your career, LinkedIn is built to support you at every stage because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more. Stuff at Sea is a 5-night adults-only sailing trip that brings the Stuff podcast universe to life on board. This voyage is a culture-soaked escape where pink sand paradise meets curious minds. Sailing round trip from New York City to Bermuda on October 2nd to 7th, 2026, this voyage drops you straight into the iHeart Podcast Stuff universe. On top of the adults-only experience you already love, you'll get live podcast episode recordings, behind-the-scenes sessions, themed activations, and more unmissable onboard moments. Learn more at virginvoyages.com/stuff.
Hey everybody, we want to remind you we are wrapping up our tour this year with 3 shows in Orlando, Florida, Nashville, Tennessee, and Atlanta. Tickets are on sale now, isn't that right?
That's right. So go to linktree/SYSK or our website, stuffyoushouldknow.com, for ticket links, info, and everything you need. And we'll see you guys starting in August.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh, and there's Chuck, and Jerry's lurking around too, which makes this Stuff You Should Know. One of the first, I think we talked about iron before. The second in our ongoing saga to do an episode on each element in the periodic table.
Oh, kill me.
It's going to be so much fun, Chuck.
No, this is a good one.
Yeah, I thought so too.
That's it for me. I'm done.
We'll see about that. But we're talking today about aluminum, which is pretty much ubiquitous if you think about it. You find aluminum everywhere. I don't even need to rattle off where you find aluminum. You can figure that out yourself because it's just that ubiquitous, right?
Agreed.
So one of the interesting things about it, though, Chuck, is that as much as it's like entered into our world or become like so enmeshed with our world, it is a very, very new invention as far as elements go and discovery and use. I mean, we've been using copper forever, iron forever, bronze even longer than iron, remember? Aluminum we've been using essentially since the 20th century.
Is this the aluminum age?
Yes, it is.
Do people call it that?
No, but I think we should start calling it that.
I mean, bronze had an age, and iron had an age, stone had an age.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Chuck. The aluminum age. That's a wonderful idea. It really gets the point across.
It does. And you mentioned that it's ubiquitous in use these days for sure, but it's also abundant. And as Livia pointed this out, because she helped us out with this one, she did a really good job on this one, I think. 8% of the total mass of the Earth's crust has aluminum in it, but it's not like from the beginning we could just go down there and chop out a bunch of aluminum with a screwdriver and a hammer.
Right.
Because aluminum had not a problem. It just had a quality that it bonds very easily with other elements. So that means it's reactive. So that means it's in the crust. It is, parts of rock and parts of other things in combination with other elements and minerals. And it wasn't just like, oh, look, there's aluminum. We can just go grab it. Like we had to figure out how to extract usable aluminum from other things, mainly these days and back then, something called bauxite. Yeah.
Bauxite is it's kind of like an umbrella term for naturally occurring aluminum ores, basically.
Yeah.
But the problem with aluminum, like a lot of metals and minerals, show up in nature as ores, and we can extract them. The difficulty is that aluminum is so reactive, it really, really meshes with the other mineral or the other rock or the other metal, and it's really tough to get apart kind of like poor Wilford Brimley in The Thing. It's like that enmeshed.
Oh, man. I'm feeling better now.
So you've got this bauxite, and we know about it. We know that there's something useful in it, but we didn't know how to get it out. And for a long time, people had noticed, like, oh, there's all sorts of stuff you can do with this this bauxite that we'll call alum, which is a kind of aluminum sulfate made with potassium. People have been using that for about 8,000 years now.
Yeah. All sorts of stuff. Like, of course, the Egyptians, they put all kinds of things in makeup, as we've talked about before. Aluminum, or that potassium aluminum sulfate is one of them. Used often in dyes, used for dressing wounds. I think you can also find aluminum in clay. So for many thousands of years, they were using aluminum strengthened clay to make harder and stronger pottery.
Yeah, you can't break it. It's like an unbreakable comb.
Unbreakable what?
Comb.
Like a hair comb?
Yeah, I think it's a brand name even.
Oh, really? I've never heard of it.
It just invites you to break it, and it eventually does break, by the way. But it's hard to break.
I gotcha.
So, yes, people were using it for a while. And by the way, as an aside, there's I don't want to say famous, but there's a noteworthy artifact that was discovered in the tomb of a general, Zhu Chu, who lived in China about 1,700 years ago. And it's a belt, and it's made of aluminum. And it's what you would refer to as an out-of-place artifact, or oop-art, which is something that kind of bucks our understanding of history and time. Like, that should not exist because this was the 3rd century CE, and it wasn't
until... you find
until...
a remote control in, the Old West or something like that?
Exactly. That would be a very significant out-of-place artifact. This one's still pretty significant, so much so that they're like, we think this is an archaeological prank, like a joke.
Oh,
Like somebody was like, this is really going to blow their minds, and it did.
Right.
But most people are like, this is so inexplicable, there's no way that it's real.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But still inexplicable.
Yes. That's one of the things that makes it awesome.
Yeah, sure.
But the upshot of my whole point was we knew that there was something useful in there. And as far as the chemistry world goes, it's not enough to just know it's there. They have to isolate it. They're just fanatics about it. And they said that about doing that in the 19th century, right?
Yeah, there was one chemist in particular named Antoine Lavoisier. Yeah.
Very nice, yeah.
Obviously French. And he was like, hey, this aluminum oxide, or I think they were calling alumina at that point, we can probably extract this stuff. Wasn't able to, but not too long after, in 1808, there was a British chemist named Sir Humphrey Davy, who, and he actually named it, well, we'll get to the naming thing in a second. It goes through some stages. To him, it was alumium.
Uh-huh. That was his first name for it.
He wrote a book of elements, elemental and chemical philosophy, 4 years after that. And at that point, it was spelled aluminum. But then later on, like 4 years later, in the Quarterly Review, there were a bunch of British chemists who were just like, I don't like the ring of aluminum. It doesn't sound British enough. So they went with aluminium with an extra I. And that was basically what people called it for a long time, except for Americans who were like, you know what? We're using both of these terms. We really like aluminum. It's in the dictionary. It's in Webster's dictionary as aluminum. Can we just settle this? And in 1925, finally, the American Chemical Society said, yes, we are going to say it's aluminum. And so Americans and Canadians are the only people who call it that for some reason.
Yeah, everybody else calls it aluminium.
Yeah, they stuck with it.
They really did. They really stuck with it for sure. So that Humphrey Davy, going back to him, probably one of the reasons he came up with different spellings was because he was fresh off of his self-experimentation with nitrous oxide.
Oh, yeah.
He was the guy who called it, excellent airbag. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
So he was the one who said, there is an elemental, useful metal here in this cruddy ore. And he described it before anyone had ever even isolated it. But in the world of chemistry, you wouldn't call Sir Humphrey Davy the discoverer of aluminum. In chemistry, to discover something, you have to have isolated it in its pure form. And there was an early attempt to do that. I think there was a guy named Hans Christian Ørsted who in 1825 came very close, but he had an impure isolated aluminum. And then very triumphantly, Friedrich Wöhler, or Wöhler, I think, came up with pure aluminum 2 years after that.
Yeah, it's the old chemistry tradition that in order to be named the discoverer, you have to extract it and then roll it up in a ball and hit someone with it.
That's right. That's the tradition.
That's right. But it was really expensive to do. Mm-hmm. So for the first, and it's kind of funny to think about now because they've gotten so good at making aluminum. It's obviously used in so many different things, and it's fairly inexpensive. But back then it was a luxury item. So aluminum at first was known as the metal of kings, and Napoleon loved it. And he was like, just think of what we could do with this stuff in the military. It's fairly strong. It's very light. I think, the lightness was such a huge attractive quality for aluminum, still is. Mm-hmm. And he was like, we need this stuff. And here, I even want to eat off of it. So make some cutlery for me, and I'll just keep very select sets of this stuff for me and my very special guest, and everyone else will just dine on silver spoons, and we'll use this aluminum. Mm-hmm. And they were just going crazy for aluminum. It was very kind of funny to look back at how it was a luxury metal in its earliest days.
It definitely was, and one reason why is because even though Wöhler had come up with a method for extracting pure aluminum, it was really labor intensive. It was really hard to do, and you didn't get very much from it. So that made it a very precious metal, especially when, like you said, you had people like Napoleon III bankrolling investigations into getting more and more aluminum, right? And one of the reasons why, I did not know this, but there's probably people out there who do, that there is an aluminum pyramid capping the Washington Monument that was installed when the monument was built in 1884, finished, is in part because America was showing off.
Yeah.
In 1884, it was still a very luxurious good, and they had the 6-pound aluminum pyramid placed on the top, and it was so difficult still at that time to extract aluminum that represented 1/4 of the annual production of all the aluminum in the world that was produced that year, that 6-pound pyramid.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. 8 inches and 6 pounds, and they're like, get a load of this. Wait till they see this thing.
Yes.
It's like a bunch of beer cans mashed together.
Exactly. That's the funniest part. This is 1884. They paid like $7,500 in today's money for it, which seems kind of cheap to me. But
agreed.
2 years later, we got so good at extracting aluminum, we came up with another process, which we'll talk about in a second, that pyramid went from like hero to zero almost overnight.
Yeah, but it also served a purpose because everyone knows aluminum is very anti-corrosive, so that's a nice topper for a monument. Sure. And it also served as a lightning rod, so it served a purpose, but it was for sure a brag. Right. But like you said, it went kind of to a staple thing very quickly once some very smart people got to work refining this process. One was Charles Martin Hall, an Ohioan. He's very Ohio. Mm-hmm. And I would say Paul Heroult. How would you pronounce that?
Heroult. I think you might actually say the T in that one. I'm not sure. Heroult. Okay.
Heroult, another Frenchman.
Yeah.
They independently in 1886 invented this technique that they have now has been codenamed after them as the Hall-Heroult process, mm-hmm. In which you dissolve aluminum oxide in molten cryolite mineral.
Right.
Pass a current through there. We've talked about those kind of processes before. And I believe the Frenchman actually filed the patent about a month and a half before Hall, but Hall proved that he had come up with it previously. And so they worked it out. They shared credit. They even ended up dying in the same year. Yeah. I guess they really wanted to share everything. Right. So they said, let's just die together as well. Mm-hmm. And they both passed away in 1914. And that wasn't the end of the process, though. I think someone else came along and really refined it.
Yeah, and that was not only not the end, that was just the beginning. That process is still in use today. And then, like you said, a third guy, Carl Josef Bayer. Would you say Josef?
Oh, probably. I think, yeah.
Okay.
Let's go with Joseph.
Carl Josef Bayer in 1887, the next year, came up with a way to get aluminum oxide, which was the base form of aluminum that you start out with in the Hall-Héroult process. The next year, somebody came along and figured out a better way to get aluminum oxide from bauxite. So in the span of a year, essentially, we went from aluminum being a precious metal to having an industrial process in place that we still use today. That's incredible. That's why we live in the aluminum age today. I just think the timing of the whole thing is so amazing. And I saw it explained in part because people were so well aware that aluminum was light and strong and conductive. Those are really desirable properties. They wanted this metal really bad. So it was a real target in the chemistry world, which explains why Hall and Héroult both came up with the same process independently at the same time. But the fact that you put that together with Bayer's discovery, and it just all congealed all at once rather than over the course of, decades and decades.
Yeah.
I just find that very interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. In fact, Hall in 1888 helped found a company that's still around today. Back then it was called the Pittsburgh Reduction Company, and now it's known as the Aluminum Company of America, Alcoa. I'm sure we have plenty of listeners in Pittsburgh that work for Alcoa, very big company. And the price of aluminum really went down. So, I mean, if you want something to go from a luxury to like something that you crush against your head from a beer can, you go from almost $5 a pound in 1888 to 78 cents in 1893, and then all the way down to about 20 cents a pound in the 1930s.
Yeah, so in today's prices, it's going from $665 a pound to $5.45 a pound in just a few decades. That's how radical and just world-changing that process was and is.
All right. I think that is a heck of an intro.
All right. Well, let's take an ad break then, I say.
Some podcasts might stop there,
Yeah, but we're going to keep going.
All right. We'll be right back.
We've all had the experience of calling a business and just wanting to talk to a real person. Not an automated voice pretending to be human, an actual person who can listen and understand and offer help.
That's exactly what you can do with Ruby. Ruby is the virtual receptionist company that takes care of your callers when you're unavailable in the middle of something or simply don't want to pick up.
That's right. They can answer, screen, transfer calls. They can take messages, collect payments, book appointments, and more, all while making the people you serve feel special.
And best of all, it can help you be more productive. For example, 9 out of 10 lawyers who use Ruby log more billable hours per day than the national average.
And other professionals like plumbers and technicians win more customers while being able to stay focused on the job. But whatever kind of small business you run, Ruby is built to save you time, earn you more customers or clients, and make meaningful connections with the people you serve.
It's available 24/7, 365 days a year, and 100% based in the U.S. See why more than 15,000 small businesses use Ruby. Visit ruby.com, or better yet, call them at 844-900-RUBY.
The springtime thaw is finally here. Flowers are blooming, days are longer. We're saying yes to more plans and finally getting outside, running, walking, just moving again. It's the perfect time to upgrade your everyday go-tos with Bombas. Take Bombas sport socks. They're super comfortable and designed with sport-specific tech for running, cycling, yoga, hiking, you name it. I use them to run in, and I can tell you they work beautifully. So head over to bombas.com and use code SYSK for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com, code SYSK at checkout.
So you're considering getting a home security system, but you want something that fits your space. Well, With ADT Blue, it's easy to customize a system that's right for you and set it up yourself. Just pick the kit and monitoring plan that makes sense for your home.
Yeah, well, let's say you're worried about package theft right off your front porch. The ADT Plus app can walk you through setting up a new doorbell camera kit. Once it's installed, ADT Pros can help you keep tabs on it 24/7, or you can manage it yourself from the ADT Plus app.
That's right. There are no long-term contracts, so you can change your monitoring plan whenever you want. The flexibility doesn't end there either. You can add to your system as you need with things like extra cameras or motion sensors.
Some life decisions are hard, but thanks to ADT Blue, you can get DIY trusted ADT home security in a snap. Head to adt.com/BLU to build your system today. And to find out more about home protection, check out a new episode of Grown Up Stuff with security expert Joe Mazza, out now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so one of the things, Chuck, that we talked about was you mentioned that you melt cryolite. I think it melts at 1,000 degrees Celsius. And then you melt aluminum, so the temperature has to be even hotter than that, like really, really hot. And then you pass a really strong electrical current through that. And to do all this, it's really, really energy intensive, as we'll see.
Still is.
Yeah. So one of the other things that supported the boom in aluminum was that the electrical grid and ways of creating and generating and getting electricity from place to place was also developing simultaneously in the United States as well. And that really helped a lot.
Yeah, big time. And in fact, a lot of aluminum plants early on were built near dams. They were like, let's really make this efficient and set up camp right next to that dam over there. So we should probably go over some of the modern uses of aluminum. Aluminum is, like we said, has so many great properties, but it is fairly soft and weak in and of itself. I mean, it makes, and we'll talk about foil and beer. I can't stop talking about beer cans. And it's great for that stuff. But if you want to use it in, commercial settings, you can make commercial aluminum. You just have to mix in a little iron, maybe a little silicon, and it makes it much stronger. And there are like all kinds of ways that you can alloyify. Is that a word?
I think it works.
All right. You can alloyify aluminum to do things like, build an airplane. And in fact, that's the Wright brothers. You might be thinking that airplane was made of wood, and it was. But the engine, and I never knew this, was made of 92% aluminum because they needed horsepower. They needed a strong enough engine to get that little wooden frame off the ground, but they couldn't make it like you would a car engine because it'd be way too heavy. So they needed to be less than 200 pounds, produce that 8 horses, and German car makers were starting to use aluminum for their engines, and they said, you're onto something. They ended up using 8% copper to the 92% aluminum, and they got that thing off the ground.
Yeah, they turned to their mechanic, Charlie Taylor, and it needed to be no more than 200 pounds and produce 8 horsepower, like you said. He delivered one from scratch that weighed 180 pounds and produced 12 horsepower. So Charlie Taylor really came through. I know we talked about him in the Wright Brothers episode we did. Was that a 2-parter?
I don't know.
I want to say it was, but I make a lot of stuff up in my head.
So, come World War I, not too long after, they were making full airplanes out of metal. Like aluminum replaced wood very, very quickly because you had wood and fabric airplanes. Obviously, that was the best they could do at the time, but aluminum is so much stronger and you could go a lot faster and do all kinds of things you couldn't do with wood and fabric. Yeah. And there's even, Livia found a gentleman at the National Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian, who was like, if it wasn't for aluminum, we wouldn't have the planes and spacecraft we have today, kind of period.
Yeah. And so that really gets across one of the big prized things about aluminum. It's strong, but it's also light. It's not quite as strong as steel, but it's much lighter than steel, I think 3 times lighter. So its strength to weight ratio is much better, which means it requires a lot less either horsepower in your 12 horsepower engine or a lot less solid rocket fuel to get your rocket off of the ground because you're using aluminum. So that's pretty great. There's another quality of it that's allowed aluminum to really kind of help us is its conductivity.
Yeah, if it was equally as conductive as copper, it would have fully replaced copper at this point because of how much easier aluminum is to get. But it's about 2/3 as good as copper, which is still great, very conductive. But it's 1/3 as heavy, which is great. That the problem there is, you're going to need aluminum wire that's about 1.5 times the diameter of copper if you want it to perform the same. So it is lighter, but that's a lot bigger. So they couldn't. They tried to for a little while, but they couldn't just like go in and replace copper in households and stuff because the wiring is too big. They do use it for overhead and underground transmission because you reinforce it with steel and it can be bigger in diameter. It's not that big of a deal. But I think in the 60s and 70s, they were trying it in houses because copper was really expensive. I think it worked well, but the connections ended up where you connect it together ended up being a fire hazard, so they did away with that.
Yeah, what happens is where the wiring goes into like your outlet, your socket, right, in the back, the aluminum expands and contracts much more than copper does, so it loosens over time, and when it gets loose enough, it'll arc. And an electrical arc is way worse than just an electrical current because the electricity encounters gas, the atmosphere, and it shoots up to like 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit and causes fires. So if you buy a house with aluminum wiring, like from the 60s or 70s, your insurance company is probably going to be like, if you want insurance on this house, you're going to have to totally rewire it.
That's right. And now we can talk about beer cans.
Finally.
Because that is what started to happen all the way back in the late 1950s. The old cans were made of usually tin, sometimes steel. And there was a very forward-thinking company in Hawaii called the Hawaii Brewing Company. And they tried it out on their Primo beer. And they said shipping this stuff is a lot better. It's a lot cheaper. We can ship it to the mainland, no problem. But the can linings that they were using at the time, there was a chemical reaction going on between the beer and the can. It ruined the beer, bankrupted the company. But it did not die there because Coors was right on their heels. They were already working on the same thing, and they perfected it just a year later in 1959 and basically said the same thing. It's like, this is a lot cheaper. It's easier to and lighter, obviously, than glass bottles. It actually helps the beer deprive the beer of light and oxygen better than bottles. And Coors started the whole thing, as far as beer goes, followed very quickly by RC Cola on the soft drink side. And then it was aluminum can city as far as soft drinks and canned anything goes, basically. But if you remember when, like, we were kids, those same aluminum cans just felt heavier and thicker. It's because they've refined the process and made it much thinner over the years. But those old cans, because I was like, were those tin? They weren't. They were aluminum. They were just a lot heavier back then.
Right. So today, aluminum cans are so useful that 20% of the entire global supply goes to making aluminum cans, which is pretty amazing. And the other thing about it is it's highly recyclable, as we'll see. It has what's called infinite recyclability. Like, it doesn't degrade in the recycling process, and it requires way less energy, time, and money to recycle aluminum cans. So much so that I read that the can of, say, like Coke or beer or whatever you're drinking was probably in the exact same form in a different life 60 days before. Each can has about a 60-day life cycle from sale to use to recycling to reprocessing to repackaging to going back on the store shelf again. Isn't that amazing? But it's not like they just wash out the same can. It's completely disintegrated. So it's not the exact same can, but it was in some way that same can before. It's like that ship we talked about in Does Your Body Replace Itself? If you slowly replace each part of the ship, when you replace everything, is it still the same ship? Same question applies to aluminum cans, it turns out.
Yeah. I mean, we might as well finish up on recycling and just say that we've tried to beat the recycling drum over the years, and we know that there are some problems with the recycling process for a lot of stuff. I know glass is particularly problematic, but aluminum is one of those that they have really, really figured out how to do it in a great, efficient way.
Yeah.
And it's so recyclable, and it's very easy to recycle. Yet only 50% of aluminum, and this is just cans, just the cans that people drink, only 50% of those still are recycled.
That's so nuts.
So just, we implore you, we try not to get on the old high horse, but if you're not going to recycle anything else, please just recycle those cans. It's so easy, and it really, really makes a big diff.
Yeah, again, it requires 5% of the carbon emissions to recycle aluminum pound for pound than it does to process it and create it initially. 5%.
It's not a scam. It's not just going to some landfill. Like, they've really got aluminum recycling down pat. So you can feel good about throwing that can in the recycling and knowing that some other jerk next to you will be drinking from almost that same can, 2 months later, you said?
Yeah, about six to 8 weeks.
Yeah, that is just a wonderful thing. So recycle that aluminum.
There's a very often cited stat that I think goes all the way back to 2001. I couldn't find a more updated one. But we throw away so many aluminum cans that we could rebuild the entire U.S. commercial air fleet every 3 months with that aluminum. Just thrown away. And the other thing talking about is recyclability. If you can just recycle aluminum over and over and over again, eventually we have enough that we've mined and processed that we don't have to mine and process it anymore because it's all getting recycled. So we could
We're
stop
close to that
mining.
now, right?
No, not if we're only recycling 50% of our cans. That means we have to supplement the recycled material with another 50% of new cans.
Yeah, but about 75% of all aluminum ever used is still being used.
Okay, yeah, that's true. So sure, I guess 25%.
There's some missing math in there somewhere.
Well, so we're talking cans and then we're talking all aluminum.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, apparently the building industry, it has a much higher recycling rate.
That's right. So good for them.
Do you want to take another break?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, here we are, everybody, taking another break. We've all had the experience of calling a business and just wanting to talk to a real person, not an automated voice pretending to be human, an actual person who can listen and understand and offer help.
That's exactly what you can do with Ruby. Ruby is the virtual receptionist company that takes care of your callers when you're unavailable in the middle of something or simply don't want to pick up.
That's right. They can answer, screen, transfer calls. They can take messages, collect payments, book appointments, and more, all while making the people you serve feel special.
And best of all, it can help you be more productive. For example, 9 out of 10 lawyers who use Ruby log more billable hours per day than the national average.
And other professionals like plumbers and technicians win more customers while being able to stay focused on the job. But whatever kind of small business you run, Ruby is built to save you time, earn you more customers or clients, and make meaningful connections with the people you serve.
It's available 24/7, 365 days a year, and 100% based in the U.S. See why more than 15,000 small businesses use Ruby. Visit ruby.com, or better yet, call them at 844-900-RUBY. Hey everybody, here's a fact for you. In the United States, there is a break-in every 26 seconds, and that means that somewhere right now, an intruder is getting closer. And the problem with most security systems is that they only alert you after the break-in has started, and that's too late.
Well, that's what makes SimpliSafe different. They use alerts. SimpliSafe's U.S.-based live agents, they identify threats on your property and help deter them before they actually break in. So the intruder never gets into your house. The crime is stopped before it even starts.
That's right. And another great thing about SimpliSafe is they have no long-term contracts. They give you peace of mind and great value with their monitoring deterrence plans because they just start at about $1 a day.
Yeah, Simply Safe sent us a setup years back, and I still use mine every day.
Yeah, and apparently setup, you can do it by yourself in under 30 minutes, so it's a really good value and it doesn't take long.
So if you want to experience the Simply Safe peace of mind, you can take advantage of the Simply Safe discount offered to Stuff You Should Know listeners. Right now, you can get 50% off your new system by visiting simplysafe.com/stuff. That's half off at simplysafe.com/stuff. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more.
All right, everyone. Cans are great. We love those cans. But I love, and I always have loved, aluminum foil. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's the foldability of foil.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. I had a roommate who used to eat candy and make little things out of gum wrappers, little swords and things, and poke people. And I don't know. I've always loved aluminum foil. I even make the mistake sometimes still calling it tinfoil, even though I don't think it was at all even around when I was a kid even.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
I just picked it up from my grandmother or something?
Probably. I mean, everybody calls it tinfoil still.
Yeah, I guess so. Even Adam Savage on his Japanese foil ball video called it tinfoil.
Did he?
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a sec. But in 1910, there was a manufacturer, an aluminum manufacturer, that said, all right, I can figure out how to get this aluminum into these big rolled sheets, and we can package candy in it. We can package tobacco in it. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, in 1913, it hit the U.S. in the form of Lifesavers candy rolls and other kinds of candy bars. And then it didn't take long before, like, the 1920s, when it was used as, the rolls of foil that very useful. I still try to not use it because, cutting, like, reducing is the first thing in reduce, reuse, recycle. So it's not like I'm just like ripping tinfoil off all the time just to play with it. Mm-hmm. But it is a very handy thing to have in the house.
If you toss that aluminum foil ball in the recycling, it doesn't matter. You can play with it all day long.
Heck yeah.
Because it's infinitely recyclable. I don't know if we said that or not yet.
We've a bunch of times, but reducing is still better.
Sure.
That's why it's number one on the list.
But it's so hard, Chuck.
To not play with aluminum foil?
Yeah, to reduce.
Yeah, it is.
So we can't not talk about the tinfoil hat, too. Like, think about it. No one ever says the aluminum foil hat. They say foil or tinfoil. Apparently, the Vice magazine traced it back to a 1927 story by Aldous Huxley's brother Julian. I can't remember what it's called, and I knew it. It's a great name, too. Sorry, everybody. But he develops this form of mass control, the scientist, the main character, and he uses a cap of metal foil to prevent that mind control being used on him. And as far as Vice magazine is concerned, that's where the whole thing began.
Whose brother was this?
Aldous Huxley, the Doors of Perception guy.
I think you did the Josh add a vowel.
Aldous, yeah, that's true. I've always done that. I don't think I've ever said his name other than Aldous Huxley.
Oh, I'm surprised you don't say aluminium, because they've added the vowel for you.
I refuse to, because I'm American through and through. I bleed red, white, and blue, Chuck.
That's right. All right, so that happened in what, 1927?
No, seriously, please call a doctor. My blood is white sometimes.
No.
It can't be healthy.
You're fine. That was in 1927, and then in World War II, there was a propaganda broadcaster named William Joyce who talked about tinfoil hats protecting against shrapnel. Mm-hmm. So that was another use, right?
Yeah. That guy was a Nazi propagandist who was trying to undermine the British morale. He was a real jerk. They hung him, named Lord Hee-Haw-Haw.
Yeah.
I always want to say Lord Hee-Haw. Actually, I want to say Lord Hee-Haw-Haw because I always add an extra vowel. But the upshot of all this, I don't even know if that applies in this case, but how about to wrap up this section, like a piece of aluminum foil, if you've ever watched Better Call Saul, the original, I guess the first couple seasons, what's his brother's name?
I never seen the show.
Oh, okay. Well, Michael McKean plays his brother very well. He's a big jerk. But he has an electromagnetic sensitivity, which they explore in depth. And he wraps himself in magnetic foil anytime he wants to get out of the house. But an MIT study in 2005 found that doing that would actually amplify electromagnetic frequencies rather than prevent them from entering your body or head.
No good, then.
Yeah, tinfoil hat does not work, everybody.
I referenced the Japanese foil ball thing, and it's apparently one of these internet challenges from like 5 years ago that I had never heard of.
Me either.
So I immediately went and looked it up, and it's basically you take a big crinkly ball of foil, and you start hammering on it until you do it so much that it ends up, if you just use the hammer, you can even get it down to a pretty smoothish aluminum ball. Mm-hmm. I did see others, though, that, then they would get out some grinders and some sandpaper and stuff.
That feels like cheating.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you want to up with. They could have stopped and just said, all right, here, this is like really cool. Mm-hmm. But then when you like sand it down and use the grinder and use like polish and stuff, you can literally take it to the point where it's a very, very shiny, it looks like almost like a solid chrome steel ball. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool and fun to see. And I think I want to try to do it.
I think you should, and you should post it on Instagram.
Maybe. I mean, I'll post it either way. I was going to say if it's a success, but it's even more fun if I screw it up.
Exactly, totally. But that gets across how aluminum can be decorative. So like a lot of shiny paper or shiny materials that are just shiny on one side, they're coated in aluminum because they figured out a technique to flash vaporize it in a vacuum. And it just goes whoop and coats whatever happens to be in there with it. That's the process they use. And flash vaporizing aluminum, you got to feel like some sort of god on earth when you're able to do that, when you press that button,
Yeah. It's used in all kinds of buildings, kind of starting with in the 1930s in New York City with the Empire State Building. It used a lot of aluminum. It is used a lot in car making. They use about 18% of all aluminum is used in automaking these days. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, what else? Like you mentioned the decorative paper. It's in toys. It's in medicine. It can be an antacid if it's aluminum hydroxide.
Yeah, most over-the-counter antacids are made of that.
Yeah, it's still used topically, just like they did back in the old days for burns and wounds and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's still in makeup.
Yeah, and it plugs up your pores in your antiperspirant.
Yeah, which we just talked about in, History of Hygiene.
That's right.
And apparently, and I always thought that was not good at all, but Livia pointed out in that podcast, and we can talk about it some here too, that it has not been proven decidedly that aluminum is really, really bad for your body in the quantities that you would normally have aluminum.
Yeah, there was a scare back in about 2010, 2011 that the aluminum in your antiperspirant was going to give you breast cancer, and apparently that was just made up on the internet, and studies don't actually support that. The new one is that aluminum, and I shouldn't say new because I think it kind of started in the 60s and 70s, that there was some sort of correlation between the tau protein tangles and plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's and aluminum consumption. Was it in like mice or rats that they found this in, I think?
I think it was mice, but they were like injecting mice.
Right.
And they ended up saying like, humans are never going to come into contact with this much aluminum
Right.
just from, being on the earth and using aluminum. I think they have found that if there's like aluminum in the drinking water supply of your town, which has happened and is a real problem, then if you have Alzheimer's, it can accelerate it. But I don't think they have still linked it to like causing full stop Alzheimer's.
No, but they have identified it as a neurotoxin because remember how it's super reactive? It does the same thing with cells in your body, including your neurons. So it can really mess your brain up, and it causes double strand breaks, which messes up your DNA. So when that cell divides into another one, that new cell's DNA is messed up too, hence tumors too. So there are problems with aluminum. Like you said, it is in the water supply. It's really in a lot of surprising places, and we put those things in our body. Again, want to point out, before the 20th century, this didn't happen. People weren't like ingesting aluminum. It didn't exist in that form on Earth, right? That's a new thing. But it does seem that despite it not being used in any biological process, despite it being very new, and so the human body has not really encountered this and gotten used to it, our kidneys are supposedly very, very efficient at flushing aluminum right out of the body about as fast as it comes in.
Yeah.
I think that's impressive.
It is, and that's where it stands right now. I don't think anyone has like closed the book and said, well, we're just not going to study this anymore.
Right.
But right now, that's where things stand.
Yes.
One problem with aluminum is that there have been instances fairly recently about aluminum hoarding. In the early 2010s, the Goldman Sachs company, they bought a warehouse complex outside of Detroit, Michigan, and they stored aluminum for producers and for banks and for people who traded aluminum. And they said, at a certain point in the years that followed, buyers were trying to get a hold of aluminum, and all of a sudden what used to take, a month and a half to get was taking a year or more to get. And it was a real problem. And there were people like beer companies and soft drink companies were saying, what's going on? This is costing us millions and billions of dollars waiting on these aluminum delays. And Goldman Sachs was like, hey, we don't have enough forklift drivers and trucks. And that's the problem. It's not us telling everyone to hold on to that aluminum to make a false supply issue so we can charge more for it.
Right.
But the New York Times came along and said, no, that's exactly what's going on. You're just increasing profits by creating a false supply. Yeah,
what's interesting is the aluminum market, aluminum as a commodity, is in like the supply is tracked so closely that, just little instances of hoarding like that, if it happens like enough times, it can affect like the price pretty easily. The supply can just stop. People do that. When it's really cheap, they'll do what Goldman Sachs did, just buy up supply and sit on it until it goes up in price, because in part you're sitting on the supply, and then you just kind of slowly reintroduce it to the market so that you don't drop that high price while you're still raking in the dough by selling the aluminum you have. And to be fair, Goldman Sachs was far from the only investment bank doing this, running these kind of warehouses. But this is the early 2010s, fresh off of the financial meltdown that Goldman Sachs got bailed out for. So everybody was, they were just pointing out Goldman Sachs alone.
Yeah. That was fair.
I think so.
That's as fair as we could be.
That's called tit for tat, buddy.
In this case. Even just a couple of years ago in 2021, they found aluminum hoarding going on in Vietnam to the tune of about up to $5 billion worth of aluminum. They said this may be the largest aluminum hoard that's ever been. And like you said, people are just, doing the wrong thing, and the prices really fluctuated quickly. I think there was a low of about $1,500 a ton during the pandemic shutdown, and then they went to about $3,500 a ton just a couple of years later.
Yeah, it's
a big diff.
It's very sensitive. The price is very sensitive. China's a big producer now, and they've figured out that when they throttle or dial back supply, they can change the price pretty easily themselves too. So it's a strange market, especially if we stop mining it. I want to know what's going to happen to the price when we just say, okay, we have our aluminum supply, and now we're just circulating it throughout the economy. Is that going
recycling?
Is that going to make it more expensive, less expensive? I'm curious what will happen to that.
Well, the cynical human in me thinks that they will then find a way to maximize profits there by doing something untoward?
Probably. You don't have much faith in commodity traders, huh?
I know.
So one other reason, Chuck, to make it to this circular economic status for aluminum, where we've mined everything that we need and we're just reusing the stock, is because bauxite mining is really, really bad for the environment. Most mining is, but any kind of strip mining is really bad because it just completely depletes the land of everything it needs to keep itself going.
Yeah.
Bauxite also really pollutes water supplies too with other heavy metals. And then also, because it's so energy intensive, just the bauxite mining produces 3% of the world's direct CO2 emissions. Just
That's
the mining, not
startling.
Not processing it into aluminum, just the mining alone does that.
Yeah, that's 3%. I mean, 3 is a small number, but we're talking about all of the CO2 emissions on planet Earth coming from one single process. That's staggering.
Yeah. And so start looking around. If you're like, just ask yourself before you throw something away, is this aluminum? If the answer is yes, throw it in a recycling bin.
Yeah. And, World War II, there were kids turning in their gum wrappers for the war effort to get aluminum recycled.
That's so cute.
Be more like World War II kids.
Someone apparently suggested melting down the Washington Monument cap during that time, but everybody just kind of didn't say anything about it. Just let it
Did
die.
they really?
Yeah, somebody did.
And people are like, how'd you even know that?
Right. That's a really arcane piece of trivia.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for aluminum, everybody. And that means, of course, it's time for listener mail.
I'm going to call this airplane etiquette. Did you read this one yet?
I don't think... No, I didn't.
This is fresh off the presses. But I'm also going to call it, Am I the A-hole? Because this is sort of what this person is asking a little bit with this airplane situation that this gentleman was on recently. And is asking for advice and like, did I do the wrong thing?
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to read sort of a shorter version.
Okay.
But needless to say, Frank is really into the show and very thankful for it. So Frank and his wife were on a Comfort Plus flight from our good friends at Delta recently, and they were in the the aisle seat and the middle seat. I believe Frank was on the aisle. He's tall. His wife took the middle seat, and they were boarded and seat belted when a passenger assigned to the window seat arrived. As a courtesy, my wife and I turned our legs sideways so he would have an easier time sliding past us. But he said that he doesn't feel comfortable sliding past people like that and asked us to get up and let him in. I mentioned there was plenty of room for him to slide past since we were in Comfort Plus, but he insisted we get up. So we unbuckled, we got up, and we let him in. When we were preparing to land, about 10 minutes out, the same passenger decided they needed to use the restroom. He asked my wife and I to get up again to slide out. I was watching a movie at the time, so I had to pause the movie.
Oh, my God.
Fold the arm that holds the screen back into the seat. You know, sometimes they come out of the arm there.
Yeah.
And then fold up my tray holding my drink into the seat so he could get out. I did this, turned my leg sideways so he could slide out, and this angered him, and he showed his displeasure by sliding past us angrily and shaking his head in an exaggerated manner. All right. So this is where we are so far.
Okay.
He returned from the restroom and then asked again if we would get up this time and let him in. I mentioned to him that he slid past us getting out quite easily. So can't you just do that sliding back in?
Oh, my goodness.
He said, no, I feel uncomfortable sliding past. He called the flight attendant to come over. And the flight attendant arrived and was fairly puzzled. I think he was... the flight attendant was confused as to what was going on. I knew the situation was beginning to stress my wife out, and quite frankly, me as well. Not wanting to cause any more stress issues because we were landing, I relented, unbuckled, and stood up again, and my wife did the same. So before we get into this, just let me finish this last part, which is what bothers me is he kept saying he's not comfortable doing so. He never said why he was uncomfortable. And that he just insisted that people unbuckle and stand. What about my comfort and my wife's comfort? What if we weren't comfortable unbuckling and getting up? Because you're supposed to remain seatbelted at all times in case of turbulence. What if my wife was 9 months pregnant? What if I was an 80-year-old man with bad knees? What if I had anxiety about unbuckling? So the flight attendant never said anything. And my question to you guys is, what is the proper etiquette? I did a lot of internet searches, couldn't find an answer. Passenger's in his 20s. My wife and I are in our mid-50s. We're in good shape, so it wasn't a health issue. But I thought this man was an entitled young man who's never been told no in his life.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, that's from Frank.
Okay.
So what do you say?
I mean, Frank, I think, yes, you were the a-hole in this instance.
Oh.
For sure.
Well, here's what I'll say.
Wait, no, I have to explain. I can't just be like,
sure.
yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's my judgment. Go ahead, Chuck.
It sounded like you were done.
No, so like it seems like you were put out because you're being asked to do something you didn't want to do. It didn't have anything to do with your comfort level. And the examples that you came up with for that man intruding on your comfort level were just made up. Like, you're not 80, your wife isn't pregnant. You were just annoyed. That guy sounded like he had like a real thing about pushing past people's knees, maybe touching other people, physical contact. Sounds like he was not into that at all. Some people are not into that to a clinical degree. And I feel like whoever's more put out, you should just defer to him. It just makes things so much more pleasant than saying no to somebody who's asking you to do something for them that really is no skin off of your back at all. So I don't think you are an a-hole like necessarily, but I think in this case, if there was an a-hole, it was it was you. Okay, Chuck. Now I'm done.
Well, I agree in that my philosophy is two-part. One is, you're all on this plane together. Everyone's crammed in there, and it's just one of those social situations where I think everyone should just do their best to just work it all out and get along while you're in that short time that you're forced to be rammed in there together. Just help each other out. It's just a lot easier, a lot less friction. No one likes to be on those planes anyway. And then the second part is, I think there's an implicit thing where if you're an aisle seat person, I'm an aisle seat person, you know that you're going to have to get up and let people out. Like, I like an aisle seat at a concert and at a sports game, and you're going to get up and down a lot and let people in who have to use the bathroom or get their beer or whatever. And it's the same on a plane. Like, you know what you're getting into with an aisle seat. That's, if you want it, I love that aisle seat, but you know it's coming. Otherwise, you could sit by the window, and that's what you do if like, I'm going to sleep. I know I don't pee on airplanes. I don't want to be bothered, so I'll just take that window seat. So that's my thing, is you know what you're getting into. If you're in an aisle seat, you're going to have to get up. I think people should always get up. It's just easier. I don't like sliding my crotch or my butt past somebody's face.
What?
At all. Ever. So, like, it's a reasonable thing, I think, to say, would you mind just standing up and letting me in? And that's what I think. Yeah.
There was one
so
other.
That's where I am.
There was one other red flag that that caught my attention, was when Frank suggested that this guy was just an entitled young man who no one had said no to in his life. That sounds then that you were doing this out of hostility, not just because you felt like you were being put out, but because you wanted to be an obstacle in this man's life, be the person who said no to him. And again, that's just hostile, and I agree with you. It flies in the face of just going along and getting along while we're on this flight together so everybody can get off and never see each other again.
Yeah, and we weren't there, so the kid may have been very sarcastic and nodded and acted like sort of a jerk, but he may have thought that you drew first blood.
True.
So that's where we stand. And Frank, you're certainly not an a-hole. You're
right.
You sound like a sweet guy who listens to this show, and it means a lot to you. So we're not calling you out for that. But maybe next time,
he literally wrote in and asked.
But you did ask, and that's our stance: is just get out, let the guy out.
Yeah.
Live and let live.
Yeah.
And if you see that same 20-year-old kid asking some old person who has bad knees, like, then that's a different situation.
Totally different. We were responding strictly to the situation as it was presented. Okay?
Yeah. All right. Boy, we could have a whole other show where we did this.
We could. I think we would routinely get ourselves into trouble, though.
Yeah. Instead, listen to the ultimate judge, our friend Judge John Hodgman.
On what, the Max Fun Network?
That's right.
Nice. Well, since we shouted out the Max Fun Network and I already ended the episode and now listener mail's over, if you want to be like Frank, by the way, thank you for being brave and putting yourself out there like that. If you want to put yourself out there like that, you can give it a shot. Maybe we'll answer it. Who knows? Either way, you can give it a try by sending an email to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Mom, can I have Lingo Kids? Dad, Lingo Kids, please!
When did we become the Lingo Kids house?
No idea. Last week it was dinosaurs. This week it's...
Lingo Kids!
Why Lingo Kids?
Because it's the best thing ever. We can play games with astronauts, wild animals, and superheroes.
With more than 4,000 interactive games, songs, and shows, Lingo Kids is the #1 entertainment platform for young kids.
So, no dinosaurs?
And dinosaurs! Lingo Kids!
Everything kids love. Download it for free.
You know, you could be adored by everyone and still completely ignored by your cat. Trust me, I know. But if you feed your cat Sheba, you can go from being ignored to truly adored in 12 days guaranteed or your money back. Sheba has a full menu of products, appetizers, entrees, treats, even a kitten's menu. It's so cute. So Sheba has a product for even the pickiest eater. Like Sheba Puree, it's made with bone broth, their chef-inspired flavors. It's got a smooth and creamy texture that cats love and contains no corn, wheat, soy, or artificial flavors. It's food that your cat's gonna love. To learn more, check out Sheba.com. That's SHEBA.com.
Stuff at Sea is a 5-night, adults-only sailing trip that brings the Stuff Podcast universe to life on board. This voyage is a culture-soaked escape where pink sand paradise meets curious minds. Sailing round trip from New York City to Bermuda on October 2nd to 7th, 2026, this voyage drops you straight into the iHeart Podcast Stuff universe. On top of the adults-only experience you already love, you'll get live podcast episode recordings, behind-the-scenes sessions, themed activations, and more unmissable onboard moments. Learn more at virginvoyages.com/stuff.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.